we go! Here we go! Here we go!
We're gonna have a fiery Sterling today.
Well, no, you just have a big old air horn, and anytime a Packers fan tries to talk, you just hit the button and drown them out. Like, no, I can't hear you. Go Bears.
It's basically the la 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 la.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You don't even have to live there. You can do it from here. Just remote control everything. Yeah, I'm pissed off, man. Fuck the NFL at this point.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast, coming at you with another week. And man, it's just getting closer and closer to football. But as per usual, I'm Brendan, and joining me, as always, my good buddy Sterling. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm okay. I'm sore. You know, as I said last week, I was off for a week, and the downside to being off for a week is you really freaking sore when you get back the next week. So feeling a little rough. Didn't have a great sleep all week. So, but other than that, doing good. Looking forward to the voluntary training camps are starting up here pretty soon, within the next week, I think, for a lot of teams. I know the Steelers start up next week, so that'll be good.
Yeah, I know, as we're recording this here on Saturday, the rookie premiere is happening where they get a bunch of rookies from all the teams and basically just show them in their jerseys, and they do a fun little bit of filming for it. It's a fun little event just to kind of see some of the top rookies for each team go make their debut in their new full custom jerseys. Obviously, we got to see Caleb Williams decked out fully in Bears gear, and you know, with him being the first overall pick, the NFL is definitely going to make this a big deal. They're gushing over it and all this type of stuff. It's not just Chicago doing this, it's, you know, the NFL as well, and rightfully so.
Well, yeah, and it happens every year with the number one overall pick. You know, that's the way it goes. You know, you went number one, you're the best.
You're gonna be
you're the best
focused
new
on
player coming into the league at that point. So
it is going to be heavy focus regardless of what it is. But yeah, similar to what happened last week, we're going to do kind of more of like our mini podcast is kind of what we ultimately had it as, and then we're going to jump into some good fantasy conversation. But you know, starting off this particular week again, we talked about it a bunch last week, but the NCAA game got their official cover. But yesterday they released their trailer, and you know, I think for myself, I was hoping for maybe a little bit more. Like, I think I was hoping for like a deep dive in what was going to happen and not just be like a game trailer, which, you know, I sat back and after it was over, and I felt kind of underwhelmed for what it was. But at the same time, like, I sat back and thought about it for a couple of hours, and I was like, man, just the fact that we get to see what they're putting into it, I'm looking at it going like, it's still exciting nonetheless. And for waiting as long as particularly yourself and myself and many other college football fans have been, it is really exciting to just kind of see it back, and, you know, to just see what is going to be some of the atmosphere. And I think that was one of the things that a lot of us were hoping, that it wasn't just going to be like, oh, hey, you're going to be playing at X field and it's this team versus this team. You wanted to hear the, you know, the fight songs, and you wanted to hear and see the traditions that they use, and this and that, because that's what it was in the old NCAA games. Maybe not to the extent of what we're going to see in the modern game, but you still got to see some of those traditions, and it was fun to see it in those trailers.
Yeah, I'm still wary, you know, because the closer we get, the more concerned I become with the fact that we're not getting to see gameplay.
Yeah.
That really, really concerns me, because that's making me think that they're hiding that gameplay because they don't want us to see how bad it's going to be, essentially. You know, because I just I'm excited for NCAA because I love the depth that you get from it. but I'm so fed up and tired of that garbage Frostbite engine that they keep using. I hate having to roll a D20 just to make sure that my quarterback doesn't throw a
An
fucking
interception.
interception.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't Dungeons and Dragons and football. I don't like. They have to update this, EA. That's still my biggest gripe with this game and with every EA Sports game that comes out, is they have to come up with a new engine that is not RNG based.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are going to be having it on the Frostbite engine. And
Hmm.
I think the biggest thing that we are going to see in terms of it being similar to Madden is the actual on-field play of the
Yeah.
game. You and I think we have both kind of just learned to accept what the gameplay is at the moment. And I don't necessarily think accept is the proper
Hmm.
terminology. We're frustrated with it. But I will
Yeah.
say this about Madden over the last couple years. It has been getting better and better and better. It hasn't taken leaps and bounds. It's more taken like baby steps into like a kiddie pool. But
Yeah.
it has been getting slightly better, and the one hope that I do have with this college game is, and we do know that it is a completely separate team to Madden. They've had years to work on this, so that is kind of my one hope right now, is just the fact that we know that they've been working on it for so long, and we know their focus is pretty much on the dynasty mode, and all the modes that we used to love. They are basically just looking at it going, if you want ultimate team, like, it's going to be in there, but it's not going to be anything special. Like, don't that's what's giving me hope.
That's fair. I just for me, NCAA, that was always my gameplay one.
Yes,
Because I always felt the gameplay was so much better in the NCAA to the Madden back when we still had NCAA games. And so that was it. It was always, oh, I'm using Madden and I'm just doing simulation football. I'm playing NCAA. I actually get to play some football that's decent.
yep.
And so that's my only concern, is I'm just going to have another simulation football game that instead of 32 teams, I have 120 teams.
Yeah, and
That's my big concern. And that's why I'm still very tempered in my hopes for it, because it's been too many years of letdowns. Like, it's 20 years later. I still want a 2K game, because at least they had good football fucking games.
the fact that the last 2K game that came out is still like the benchmark of actual football gameplay, like on the field, and how good it feels. Like, I look at people, they're playing that one and they have mods for like each individual year for like players and that type of thing. And I just look back and I go, like, I know 2K cannot make an NFL
Hmm.
simulation football game. I still think if 2K were to just say, fuck it, we're going to make a completely, like, the exact game that we want to make for football. We're just not going to have the licenses for all the teams, and we can just basically put out whatever we want for this team. I think that would be easily the best way to put pressure on the NFL to finally drop just the exclusive for EA. And because they're going to see people go, why are we going to play this if we can go to another version that doesn't even have our favorite teams, our favorite players,
Hmm.
and the league that we love, to actually get a good game? And maybe at that point, the NFL just goes, okay, 2K, you kind of shocked the world on this one. You get
Yep.
the NFL license for a year, and these two teams are going to have to compete. And then it's really going to be a situation where I think that's going to be the best, because you and I both agree that the biggest problem with the Madden football game is its lack of competition, because it just can
100%.
sit there and just be its own entity. It has nothing to compare it to. And
Hmm.
I really do think that if NCAA really, or 2K really wants to get back in the ring, they just have to say, fuck it. We're going to make our own game without the teams.
Right. And I mean, there is another league now that they could possibly piggyback onto and utilize that with just extreme expansion features included.
Yeah.
You could use that USFL now and license that out. Get those teams going and do something there. But it's a lack of competition. And so EA and Madden just sit back and they go, well, we don't have to improve the game because fuck you, you don't have any other options.
Exactly.
I wish the NFL would just grow a set of balls and do like FIFA did and pull their license from EA, like they did with the soccer.
Yeah.
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 Just be like, no, you don't have exclusivity. Yeah, you can still make the game. You still have access to all that, but other companies are going to have the opportunity to compete with you if they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I wish the NFL would do that.
me too. And when you really look at the two biggest sports games that are out on the market, number one is FIFA, just simply because soccer is
Mhm.
a more global brand. And when it comes to Madden, that is easily number two because of just the sheer volume of people that play it in both Canada and obviously the United States.
I mean, I haven't checked the metrics, but I would argue that it is possible that the NBA 2K games are up there in player numbers. That might be competing with Madden at this point because it has been year in and year out. Even people who aren't fans of basketball end up going to that because there's so much more depth, so much more quality in those 2K games than there is in anything from EA.
Yeah. No,
Even
I hear
MLB
you.
The Show, because the show isn't EA either. I believe it's
That's a
Sony.
Sony exclusive. And you know what? As
Exactly.
someone who's been playing the show
Mhm.
this year, I buy it like the show once every 4 years. It seems like the last one that I had was MLB The Show 20, and now it's MLB The Show 24. And there's a lot of stuff in this game that I'm just going like, why don't we have this in this particular game? Like
Yep.
the level of depth, like for instance, the scouting in MLB The Show, I go, if this scouting mechanic was in the NFL, because I've had issues with scouting for years and years and years and years, and I just go, if they had this would make it so much better because it's forcing you to be a little bit more in depth with each of those prospects. Because right now, when we do scouting in Madden 24, it's just basically, okay, I hire 5 scouts, I send them out, and I get them to do their role, and then at like week 11, I get them to specifically scout these 3 players. But
Mhm.
you're not really having that essence of really trying to build a relationship, and that's one of the things that the NCAA game is talking about. Going, instead of just doing the click click click, okay, you find out this and this, and you have to put points. You're really going to have to get in depth, and it's basically you're going to build a relationship, it sounds like, with these recruits, which again, you and I, when we were playing those games anyways, we would always make up those stories in our head
Mhm.
and essentially do it that way. But yeah, like I'm really, needless to say, I'm really excited about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'm still on the fence whether I'm gonna buy it immediately or wait until it goes on sale for the first time after 6 or 8 weeks, just because I have a hard time giving EA $90 for a new game that I'm not sure about.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man, and
Yeah.
it
I mean, you,
is
you look at the recent ratings on any EA Sports games, they
terrible.
average around 1 star.
Yeah.
They're not good. They don't get good ratings, and I fully expect with how intense the NCAA fan base is, if this is a bad game,
Oh,
it is
they're
going to
gonna
get
know about it.
review bombed to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is without a doubt going to be something that is going to absolutely
Mhm.
explode, because and I rightfully think it should. I
Yeah.
know, I think gamers right now, they're kind of in this weird spot of where they haven't fully gotten to the point of fighting back against these companies because it really hasn't felt like they could. The most current event that I've seen with this, and this is going away a little bit from sports, is the Helldivers. Helldivers
Yep.
2, where, the Sony basically said, you're going to, if you're on PC, you're going to have to create a PlayStation account. Granted, you and I are PlayStation guys. We've always been PlayStation guys, so that's not really an issue for us. Me as a PC gamer, I also look at that and I go like, okay, I already have a PSN account. That's fine. But they fought back and they said, no, you are not going to be able to do this. And I think that is a great first step. And now it just needs to be like, I even think back to when it was like Madden 21, where that campaign of make franchise mode great again or something like that, where like EA literally had to come out like a week later and go, okay, we've heard you, we're going to be moving these features forward, please stop hurting us, like please stop yelling at us. And
but the problem was that they came out, they said all that, and in my opinion, they still didn't fix it.
yeah, I think they added about half of the things that they initially talked about adding, which isn't good enough, but at least that, like, the worrisome thing that I had with that era is that if the gamers in the community didn't do that, how bad would this game be right now today?
Yeah, very true, very true. But like, in going back to the NCAA with the fact that we've had no gameplay, and you know the trailers come out and they release the cover art and all this, and on all of it, you've got buttons to click to pre-order it. And it's like, so you want me to pay you for a game that you're not willing to show me what it's going to be yet.
We do know, however, all of this stuff is going to be in like their own deep dives here in the next coming weeks, which you know, like I think the whole you haven't shown us anything yet, it's still kind of, I guess, early in this process of like this is coming and they're going to be doing the deeper dives, which is going to be...
it's not early in the process. It's quite late in the process, in my opinion, because we're 8 weeks out
yeah, fair.
from release.
I guess,
you know, and usually we start
of
seeing gameplay within about the 4-month mark, you know, because the game should be complete by this point. It's just beta testing and working out bugs at this point.
But we've also seen with Madden, however, that these games, we don't see gameplay trailers until about a month and a half out anyways.
Yeah, but my concern there is the reason they do that is because they know it's going to be garbage.
Yeah,
that's my concern.
I hear what you're saying with there, but it's just the worry of that they make a game every single year, and you and I have always said the solution is make a game once every 4 years.
Yep.
And just basically, if you want us to pay for, you know, roster updates, sure, I'll give you $20 for it. Like, yeah. I'm not as worried about that. And that way, it also allows them to put the rookies right in as they're drafted and the free agents and this, that, and the other thing. Or they just wait till, you know, July and they say, here's a basically $20 big update with some of the new features, blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, which is exactly what they do because they can't even update that game on the weekly basis during the NFL season.
Yeah.
You know, it's
a cluster.
It's horrible. But, you know, it goes back to we need competition so that the developers can be held accountable and start putting out a better product. So yeah, back to what you said about the Helldivers crew going after the developers there. That was good. I'm glad that happened because now we just need to see that happen with more games. You know, unfortunately, with something like EA and Madden, if they sell the 70 million copies on release, and then everybody's like, "Oh, well, we're not going to play it." EA's going to go, "Well, whatever. We still got your money.
Yep.
Fuck you. We'll just make another game next year, and y'all buy it again."
I think the biggest thing that I've heard an EA person say is they want to add ads into their games.
Yeah.
And I think that if they even ever approach that, the entire gaming community just needs to bomb the shit out. And I'm not saying actually bomb their studios, but like essentially just rating bomb.
It depends. Well, for me, it depends on the ad placement and what that means. Will this bring the cost of our game down? If so, then sure. No, because when you think about it, we see ads in the games anyway. You know, there are ads, there's your billboard signs, all that stuff, your branding for the stadiums, all kinds of ads in that way. So if they want to be doing specific targeted ads that are in those same places that aren't affecting the gameplay, then by all means. We see that in the 2K game, there's ad placement there. You've got Mountain Dew and Coca-Cola and all this stuff that's on the billboards and on the announcers benches and stuff. I believe they also have it in FIFA.
Yeah,
Or I guess FC.
my problem with that is you give EA an inch, they're going to take a mile. And it's going to be a situation of where every single game when you load in, it's going to be a 30-second ad. And then once you get to, a quarter, it's 30. To me, I'm like, it's just, no. If I'm paying for a game and I'm paying $90, I'm not, like, this is the same reason why I don't subscribe to any of the streaming platforms anymore. It's like, listen, if I'm paying you money to use your program and your platform, I'm not watching your ads. Like, I don't care. Like, get that shit out of my browser.
Ads in that state, yes, I agree. Like, if they're playing like a 30-second ad before you can even load into your game and stuff like that, yeah, that is bullshit. I'm more talking like if they want specific ads when you're, scrolling the sidelines and you see a Dr. Pepper ad behind the guy on the wall, like that shit, that's fine by me. If they want to do specific ads in that way, go right ahead.
Again, for me, it's just the word.
Load times. Yeah, no, I know. As soon as it starts affecting anything where we're playing, like, fuck you at that point for sure.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm a big no to that is because the excuse that EA is going to do is that if they go, oh well, you've already had ads in the game anyways, so we're not going to take ads because we've had it. It's just we're adding it in a different capacity this year. And for me, that's the worrisome where it's just like, no, do not put ads in the game. Like, you have microtransactions. You have gambling in your child's game.
Yep.
You do not need to place ads in there. You have little Timmy, who's 7 years old, who's got mommy's credit card, and he's going to put $1,000 on it in the first month.
Mm-hmm.
He has done everything more that I'm not going to do. You don't need me to watch an ad. Like, it's a no. Stop it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like 15, 10, 30-second ads. Yeah, I'm not for that either. That's not happening. And I already don't buy Madden anymore unless it's on a deep discount sale or even free. Like, that's the only way they get me to buy a Madden game anymore, because I'm over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of the price tags for both the NCAA game and the Madden game, you have an interesting package of where you can get both the Madden and NCAA 14 game combined, their deluxe edition, which essentially just allows you to get the game 3 days early and you get a bunch of mutt shit. But if you want to get both of them combined together, it's a nice, cool $200. Yeah.
Yeah, not happening. Right? Like, it's absolute horseshit. Like, I remember, like, again, aging myself, but back in the day, I could go and buy 2K and Madden on release day for $60.
Yeah.
Combined.
Yeah.
Yeah. and then I could play them side by side and go, oh, this one's better. I'm going to return that one.
Exactly. It's just,
and like now it's $90. Like, we're going towards, like, what's going to happen if it's not just ads, it's going to be subscriptions to play. You're going to have to buy the game, and then you also have to pay their subscription just to be able to play Dynasty mode in the online setting the way that you and I play it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, no, you can only play offline franchise.
Yeah. These are things that you and I, when more stuff comes out about the NCAA game, we'll obviously be talking about. This is going to be a heavy focus of a lot of our kind of mini podcast early stations, because it is such an important game to us. But there was a few other things coming out this week. One contract and one player that is both related to your team and my team that I want to talk about. And the first one is Jared Goff signed a 4-year, $212 million contract extension with $170 million fully guaranteed.
Yeah, these guaranteed contracts are getting out of hand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's getting
Now,
a little ridiculous. I agree with the re-signing, with the extension. You know, Goff has been playing well. We talked about it last week. He's in my top 10 for quarterbacks you want to get as your QB1 in fantasy. I think he's going to be a great quarterback this year, and competitive in that top 10 range for sure. But yeah, man, those guaranteed contracts, they just keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's like teams aren't learning. You know, like the Deshaun Watson one was the first one that really burned a team badly in the Cleveland Browns,
and that was definitely because it was all guaranteed. It was fully
right?
guaranteed, which
You know, and
was
then we saw the Atlanta Falcons this year at the draft, who just fully guaranteed $100 million to Kirk Cousins, and then we're like, we're gonna draft your replacement too right now. So we're gonna give you $100 million to maybe only play here for 1 year.
yeah. And like the big thing with Jared Goff is when you look at the history of what Jared Goff has done, when he got drafted to the St. Louis Rams, he got drafted into a disorganized franchise with a head coach that was a year too late on him being fired. Played horribly in his first year. He only started 7 games of that season, and like he played so bad to the point that people called him a bust. They said
Yeah.
he's a bust. Like he's not going to be anything in the NFL. They move to LA. They get Sean McVay. Sean McVay revives his career. And essentially is like, okay, boom. Like, okay, we got the head coach, we got the quarterback. Jared Goff
Mhm.
makes it to a Super Bowl, doesn't win it, but still a lot of great stuff. He gets that extension with the Rams. And, it just didn't seem like he was capable of making it to that point. Like getting to that next like elite quarterback level, gets traded to the Lions, and I'm pretty sure everyone thought at that time that was the death of Jared Goff. Jared Goff getting traded
Mhm.
to the Lions, it was essentially going to be him. That was the end of his career as a
Yeah.
starting quarterback. It's like, okay, guess what? You're going to be the starter this year, and you better hope that there isn't this superstar talent at quarterback. Otherwise, they are going to draft him, and you are going to be a backup. And they really nailed their picks, and Ben Johnson was amazing, and they gave him that contract, and he showed that he is a damn good quarterback. And I think the contract that he got offered was without a doubt worth it. I think
Mhm.
the $170 million of the 212 might be a little bit too rich. I would have said 125 million for Jared Goff, who is still, I believe, under 30 years old. I think he's 29 at this point, so
Mhm.
he's still, and it's a 4-year deal, so he still has a lot of good football left.
Yep.
I know a few weeks ago I brought up the point of the NFL has a quarterback contract problem where
Yeah.
you'll see guys that are mid getting paid big contracts like the Daniel Jones. And for instance, we look at a guy like Tua Tagovailoa, who I don't think either of us think necessarily too highly of him. I know in our power rankings he's 13th on this list, and he's looking at that going like, okay, well, if Jared Goff got $52 million, I should be getting $55 million and getting essentially the same contract as Joe Burrow.
Mhm.
And like Jared Goff makes sense to me. The contract, the only thing that I don't necessarily love is the 170 million guaranteed. But yeah, like this is just a good contract for the Lions to get him locked up. The only
Yeah.
concern that I do have is that is Jared Goff just being a product of the Ben Johnson offense, or is this Ben Johnson plus Jared Goff? Because Ben Johnson is not going to be the Lions offensive coordinator past this year. He shouldn't have
Probably
been
not.
the offensive coordinator for the Lions this year. But it's just the unfortunate nature of it was, do you want the Commanders job or do you want the Seahawks job? And he went, no.
Well, I mean, in some cases too, depending on what jobs are available next year, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him staying in Detroit simply because he may look at it and go, well, do I want to go and build a team somewhere else, or do I want to stay here and try to win a ring?
Yeah, it's very possible, but
Right. In some cases, a guy will stick out in that offensive coordinator position a little bit longer, either of the coordinator positions, just for that prospect of, okay, well, I can win a championship here,
Mhm.
and I'll still be good enough to get a head coaching job after the fact, and then build my team my way and try to win another ring at that point.
yeah, it definitely comes down to situational, like which team, because again, for instance, let's say your Steelers have a rough year next year.
Hmm.
They win 7 games, and we all know Mike Tomlin only has that 1 year left remaining on his contract. I haven't heard of an extension. I don't know if you've heard of an extension.
Nope.
It could be a situation where both sides just say, you know what, it's time. You've been here for damn near 20 years at this point.
Yep.
It's and Ben Johnson goes, okay, we have the 7th pick in the draft, and Amir Khan is willing to trade up to the 1st overall pick because we've got a package. We can get the quarterback that I want, blah, 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 blah. Or let's
Hmm.
just say Justin Fields takes that next step with the Steelers and is, this, that, and the other thing. We don't know, but, who knows what coaching jobs are going to be available next year and
Yep.
what type of situations and quarterbacks. For all we know, the Chiefs could win the Super Bowl and Andy Reid just goes, I'm out.
Yep.
And the Lions and Ben Johnson, the Chiefs just go, hey, Ben, do you want to come work with Patty Mahomes? You
Hmm.
think Ben Johnson is going to say no to that?
Right.
Probably not.
No. No,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's just it. We don't know what situations are going to come available. We don't know what jobs. That was just me saying, I wouldn't be surprised if the right job isn't there for him,
He
that he
sits
stays as an
put.
OC still. And so that. But going back to like the contract for Goff, my biggest issue is these guarantees. That's what I don't like because even with it, you know, guaranteed, if that guaranteed was like the signing bonus, and as a result, that brought the cap hit down, then I'm all for it. But you're guaranteeing this money and it's still going to hit your cap. And so, with that in mind, like, say he takes a bad hit and completely obliterates his knee and he can't play anymore. The Lions are on the hook for that contract for the next 4 years at that amount. Whereas previously, or maybe something with the NFLPA, what they need to do is improve the insurance for these guys to the point where it's like, okay, well, this is your contract. If you have a bad career ending injury, you still will be paid, but it's not going to affect the team's cap in some way.
Yeah.
Like they really need to curb this because it's getting out of hand to the point where guys like Tua Tagovailoa, or like you said, if Justin Fields hits that next stride this year and shows that he's got that ability, then all of a sudden he's going to be wanting that kind of money. And it's too much for, you're
Some unproven.
paying like a quarter of your cap to one player on a team where you need 25 players under contract.
Yeah. Well, and just looking at this contract for Jared Goff, obviously he's still going to be making $27 million this year, and then the contract kicks in the year after that. But the signing his signing bonus is $73 million. How would you like to just sign your name down on a form and be given $73 million?
Right?
That's a pretty good day. That's a
Yep.
pretty good day when you see those checks coming in the mail. But the first year of this contract, he's going to be making 32.6 mil, which is
Yep.
just shy under 12% of the cap space for his team. The next year, he's going to be making 69.6 million. That jumps from 12% to 24%.
Yep.
The year after that, he's making 54.6. So a little bit of a drop at 17 and a half. And then his final year in 2028, he's going to be making 61 0.6, which is $18.4 million. And I completely agree with you where you're coming from, where I think if you can somehow talk with these players and go, I would rather have you be making less per week on your contract, but have a larger signing bonus, and that be where most of the money comes from. Because you look at some of these teams, like I know with the Eagles, that is something that they do a lot of, where you see like the Jalen Hurtses and the Devontae Smiths and the AJ Browns. Like, you look at their contracts and you go, like, these are all massive deals. How are they not in cap hell right now? Well, it's because a lot of it is tied up in just their signing bonuses. And so they're not making outrageous amounts of cash. So it's...
Yeah, and I mean, with a lot of those NFL owners, they've got the money to do it. I mean, look at the Patriots. That's what they did for the longest time with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Was we're going to throw a whole lot of money at you up front, and then you're going to take less on a week-to-week basis so that we can bring in more talent around you and be more successful.
And this is one of the things where if I'm a top player, for instance, like the Joe Burrows or the Justin Herberts or the Josh Allens, that is the approach that I would be taking. Because let's be honest here, $20 million a year, you're still going to be getting generational wealth.
Yep.
But the fact that you can allow your team to have more and more players, because you listen to the way that Tom Brady talked for years and years and years, and the reason why that dynasty worked is because he said, I'm still making more money than most people will ever see in generations of life per year. And I'm not making top dollar, but I'm still making a shit ton.
Yep.
And we're winning, and that's even sweeter. And now he's casually being paid like $350 million by Fox to be a commentator. So yeah, if you're considered a GOAT and just winning, you're probably going to be pretty well set up afterwards.
Well, exactly. And I mean, I guess with the Lions too, looking at it, you've got Goff under that big contract for the next 4 years. Other than that, it's a very young team. A lot of those guys aren't going to come up on contract until the final year of Jared Goff's deal.
Yeah.
And so there is a possibility there that what we might see is that final year, that $61 million, they give him another 3-year extension and then restructure that contract to push that money back so that they've got the money to pay guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs,
Sam
Laporta,
Aiden Hutchinson.
I was trying to remember the big name defensive guy they had, like, because they're going to have to pay all these guys coming up. Aiden Hutchinson will be first on that, and I think that's only 2 years away.
Yeah, Amon-Ra just signed a new extension this offseason, so he's getting paid. They paid Penei Sewell as well this offseason, so they've locked up those guys. Luckily for Jahmyr Gibbs, you have that 5th-year option with him where he's still going to be relatively cheap. Sam Laporta, you only have 3 more years of control, and he is going to be expensive as a tight end once he gets to that point. Aiden Hutchinson, I think next year is his 4th season.
And then so I believe he'll have a 5th-year option as well, though.
Yeah, I think they've already done that.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if they declined his 5th-year option, but he's going to get an extension done this year, likely, just because you'll see a lot of those top-end prospects get this deal done year 4, or going into year 4. That way the team doesn't have to use that 5th-year option. They can just say, oh, we've exercised it, but we're actually going to, take it away just because we signed this contract anyways, this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Lions continue to manage their cap, because this is going to be one of those weird situations for the Lions of where they are going to be in a position that no one has really seen from them, where they're a good team and they're going to have to manage a lot of really good players with the money that they have and how they're going to do it. So it's going to be an interesting little thing to watch over these next couple of seasons.
Oh, definitely. And they're going to have to remain successful with that kind of money as well, because you're not going to find a trade partner for a Jared Goff if things blow up. Like at that price, it's not happening. And owners and the league have to get it under control, because it's only a matter of time before we see guys making $100 million a year at this rate.
Yeah.
And it's just insane, because where does all that money come from? It ends up coming from ticket prices. You know, it comes from all these streaming services that you have to buy now if you're not pirating the games and stuff. Like, you know, I saw someone do the math, and for like, if you live in America,
$800.
yep, $800 in streaming services if you want to watch every game in the NFL next year. You know, and somebody else went through and was like, you could go to every single Panthers home game for less money than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, you and I always say don't necessarily pirate, because, you know,
No.
but, you know, I can very much understand why people do it, because, you know, we're lucky here in Canada. We are very lucky the fact that we get DAZN or just the NFL package, where we still have all of those options, and even DAZN is able to still get all those different games on their streaming services, and we don't have to go to, you know, the Amazon Primes or the Paramount or, you know, the Peacock, Netflix, and, you know, every other fucking streaming service. We're lucky in that department that we can use those. And, you know, has DAZN been a perfect product? No, far from it. But I think you and I are much more happy to pay the $120 for a year subscription of that, as opposed to going the $800 route. And you know, I just it's insane to me. Like, I understand why the NFL doesn't. They're a business. The main goal of a business is to make money and get bigger and better profits every single year. I can't blame them for Netflix coming up and saying, hey, we want to stream some games, and them going, well, you're going to have to basically buy out a game from this company who was already paying us this much. And then they go, okay, we'll buy 2 games for $300 million. And they're going to, the NFL is just going to sit back and go, no.
Right. It's just frustrating, because, like you said, we're lucky at this point in Canada, but who knows if that changes, if it hits a point where that is the price tag for me to be able to watch my Steelers play, it'll go the same way as the NHL and the MLB has gone for me. I won't watch anymore. As much as I love the sport, I can't afford to.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm being priced out of being a fan, essentially. You know, and I feel for anybody who's going through that right now, because I bet you there's a lot of people in America that are going through that right now, where they're like,
I can't
have to choose between feeding my children or watching football.
Which is insanely dumb, because sports is one of those things where, whether you care for sports or not, and if you're watching this, it's clear you care for sports, but sports is one of those things where it's meant for the common people, of seeing. It goes back to the Roman days of, like, where the poor people all gathered in the casino to just watch gladiators fight each other or fight animals. And it's essentially that, the fact that, you know, now it's just being televised. And you know, I understand the business side of things, but you shouldn't be having to spend damn near $1,000 a year to watch your favorite sport.
Right. And $1,000 a year for something that's not on for the whole year. It's only 7 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're spending over $100 a month. And if you're just watching your team's games, like you're a fan of one team, you have 4 weeks in a month. So you're watching 4 games for over $100 a month. So it's
$25 per game just to watch it at your house.
Just watch it at home and have it filled with, you know, it's 3 hours long, and probably about 70 minutes of that is ads.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing for us up here in Canada, we only get the same ads. We get we
get about 6 ads just repeated and cycled.
Yeah, it gets so bad that sometimes you will see the exact same ad played here, and then right after again, where you're just like, I just watched this. Like,
just back to back. The number of times I've watched 4 straight identical A&W ads is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like it gets to the point where every single time a commercial break comes on, I can almost repeat everything that's going to happen moments before
Mhm.
it happens because we have seen it so goddamn much. Like that's why whenever I'm watching games, I will be typically, in my little area here where I have my projector playing the main game that I'm watching, but I'll also be watching another game on my computer, and then I will typically have YouTube playing also for when it's commercial, and I can just go, okay, I'm just going to mute everything else, watch the YouTube because I don't want to watch anything else because I'm not
Yep. Yeah, I
watching
do
the
the same.
shitty
Just
ads.
throw in like a music video or even throw Spotify on and listen to a couple of songs during the ad breaks. That's what I usually do too.
Yep, nice little
Yeah.
TikTok break, Instagram Reels
Right?
break, you know, it just gets absolutely insane. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about is there was some reports that started last week that didn't really make too many headlines, and they were definitely getting more talked about this week, and it's regarding Justin Fields.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you've read some of it. And
Yep.
when I first read it, and what the rumor is that Justin Fields was maybe perceived a little bit differently than everyone thought in terms of what he was like in the locker room. And the main thing was he was difficult to work with in terms of what the veteran quarterbacks were with Andy Dalton and Nick Foles. And he also didn't really build any of those lasting relationships that what we may have thought, where he was kind of just more of a me type guy as opposed to a teammate. And when I was initially reading it, I was sitting back going, I don't really believe this, but at the same point, some of the things that they're saying kind of makes sense to me from what I have witnessed with my own two eyes. Like for instance,
Mhm.
you've heard me say multiple times, I love Justin. I never wanted to see him go, but it's just the problem was is that he just wasn't good enough at his position to warrant this generational prospect.
Mhm.
And the biggest thing that I saw with Justin Fields is he has always been a very reserved individual. He was always fairly kind of monotone and just kind of like I wouldn't say loner mentality, but like when you'd see him up at the podium, it was a lot of like he didn't look happy to be there. And I understand talking with people in the media like myself, it's not necessarily the most enjoyable thing for people to do, just us essentially grilling you on stuff time in and time out, especially when you're tired, you just finished practice and blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
But the like I've always kind of thought I was like, man, like you don't really see him do much like outside of it. Like you're not seeing him go to restaurants with his teammates or this and that. And Lord knows I haven't heard anything about him in relationship wise, which again, that's really none of my business, but the fact that,
Mhm.
you see these guys time in and time out, and he's essentially a global, or not a global, but he's a United States superstar being the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Like you would figure that you would see a little bit more of that. And like, again, I don't necessarily believe the stuff that's coming out, but I'm sitting back going like, man, if this is true, I can see it being true.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I was the same. Like I read it, and there's likely a nugget of truth in there. There were probably some instances. He's a more private person, most
Yeah.
likely. He doesn't want to be the spotlight and things like that. That's fine. It feels like it's being overinflated and overhyped that he's a horrible teammate and he's a bad to have in the locker room and all this. It almost feels like it's being done to calm the Bears fans that were big Justin Fields supporters and be like, no, don't worry, we got rid of a cancer that in the locker room, and now we've got Caleb Williams, so come back to us. And then on the Pittsburgh side of it, it almost feels the same way where it's like, oh, there's there's not a whole lot of drama in Pittsburgh this year. You know, last year there was all this quarterback controversy and drama. We need to
Spice it
inflate
up
this
a
a
little
little
bit.
bit to make it more dramatic and make it seem like Russell Wilson and Justin Fields hate each other, and that's what it feels like. It feels like it's media produced to me in some ways. There's likely a nugget of truth, like, you know, the bit where it's like he didn't really want to take advice from Nick Foles. I looked at that and I went, well, you know, I kind of get that. Nick Foles was a weird dude. You know, yeah, he beat Tom Brady, but it was kind of right place, right time for him. You know,
Yeah.
he was a backup. I think most backups at his talent level could have come in and won that game. You know, I don't think it was Nick Foles necessarily being this amazing superstar backup that everybody was like, "Oh my God, why is he a backup?" You know, that sort of
I'm not
thing.
sure that most backups like I definitely think there was an aura of Nick Foles during that time of where like you said it best. It was right place, right time, right situation, and I think it just
Yeah.
all just collected together and just made this unstoppable force, and it was just everyone kind of riding the train
Mhm.
that was just, it was like, okay, if we just all stay on task, like I think that's more or less what that was, as
Yeah.
opposed to most backups could have come in and done that. Like
Fair.
I like
Fair. Yeah, maybe not most, but I don't think he's the only one. Is sort of what I mean by that. It's like I think we could probably pinpoint other backups if they were in that situation, because that was really a well-built team essentially that was able to knock the Patriots off and win that Super
I
Bowl.
think the relationship between Nick Foles and Doug Peterson also played a massive
Yep.
factor in that, because they've had that relationship.
Mhm.
So I think if we're talking about backups, they would have had to have had that long relationship with Doug Peterson, which unfortunately I just don't think there was many guys in
No.
the league that did at that point. But like I know what you're saying with that one, where you're looking at a veteran guy who, you know, has done some level of success, but like these are some of the things that were said about Justin Fields. One source pegged into the Bears locker room says the wide held narrative that Fields was a strong leader is inflated, citing the quarterback as a surface level dude who didn't develop authentic relationships with teammates. He's called reports that teammates loved Fields' bullshit, adding the quarterback carried himself with an undeserved aura and lack emotional intelligence for someone who has been a quarterback so long. To me, I sit back and I go, those are strong things. And one of the weirdest things for me to sit back and go is one of the, and this is one of the reasons why I think there might be more truth to this than anything
Mhm.
else, is that I haven't heard any current Chicago Bears player ever since these reports have come out dispute any of it.
Why would they? That they have a new quarterback now. They don't need to dispute something like that. And I go the opposite side of that, and I go, if this was the case, then why didn't any of these players come out and say it at any point in the past? You know, like why wasn't this brought up before Caleb Williams was drafted, before Justin Fields was traded, anything like that? Obviously, it wouldn't have hurt his trade value. He only went for a
He went
sixth
from,
round pick,
yeah.
right? And so if this was wholly true, then it would have come out sooner, and it would have come from the players directly, not a source in the locker room that, you know, is likely just one of the regular reporters that's in there, and, you know, is looking around and going, well, you know, Justin Fields isn't hanging out with everybody, you know, but
Very
we,
very well might be true for sure.
right.
And I really think there's no way to really know what this is going to be. But yeah, again, I kind of understand what you're saying, like none of the former teammates have to dispute that, but it feels
Well,
like if all of this was completely false, someone would
mhm.
be like, he's not my teammate anymore and Caleb's our guy. But like, what are we talking about here? Like, all like it would just simply be like no, like stop the narrative.
Yeah. I just think the other way of it is if it was completely true too, then
It
it
would have come
would
out
have come
earlier.
out during, high media cycles. It would have come out during a time when it's, there's other news, but hey, this is still news. With it coming out right now, we're in the dead zone, as you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
It's that dead zone time where there's not a lot of news each week. There's not a lot of things for guys to report on. And so we see this every year where people start coming out with these narratives where it's like, well, maybe this is the case, but they leave the word maybe out of it, just because then it gets more clicks.
Yeah.
For me, at this time of year, unless it's coming directly from a player,
It's hard to know
or a
what's
coach,
true and what isn't.
exactly. I sort of temper my judgment on it because I go, well, how much of it is true and how much of it are you putting in here because it makes a great headline, it gets you a lot of clicks, and maybe gets you another job down the line,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And
know?
this is one of those things where I feel like we're going to have to keep this in the back of our mind for a good
Mhm.
portion of the years. And one thing that we do know about the Pittsburgh Steelers is that, and you have said this time and time again, doesn't matter how good you are, if you are a shit disturber in the locker room, you're not going to be
Yep,
there. And if
100%.
we hear a report that next year Justin Fields, the Steelers don't even offer him a contract, could be some truth to it.
Yep. Oh, exactly. And that is just it in Pittsburgh. And again, with this dead zone media cycle, I've seen some reports on Russell Wilson in the same vein, where guys are reporting going, oh, well, he's not really fitting in with the Steelers mentality. He's being more of a me diva and all this. And it's like, why now? Like,
Yeah.
you weren't reporting this, 3 months ago. You are doing it now because you have nothing else to talk about.
When it
You
comes to
know,
that with Russell Wilson, that is a hell of a lot more believable because of all the
well,
reports that we've heard in the past about him doing those same things.
yeah, well, and that's sort of what I mean is like we know that's Russell Wilson's personality.
Yeah.
So why are you coming out with an article stating all this stuff like it is new information that we're just finding out now when it's like, well, no, we've seen Russell Wilson's personality. The Steelers knew what his personality was going through the last decade of his career, and they brought him in for a reason.
Yep.
And so writing a story like that at this time of year is very much just I'm trying to get views in my eyes.
And as someone who does this type of stuff, I completely get it.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's just it's tough for me. If it's not coming directly from the horse's mouth, I have a hard time buying it in that May, June, July, early July area.
It is, but I think it's time
Oh,
that we, or unless
no,
you have something to finish off on.
yeah, I do. Since we're talking about this, and we talk about how I like to hear it from the horse's mouth. I did get that one of those this week. We had Cam Hayward on his podcast openly state that he is not attending the voluntary OTAs this year because he is unhappy with the fact that Pittsburgh has not offered him a new contract yet. He's openly said he wants to retire in Pittsburgh, but is entering the final year of his contract and took a hometown deal on that last contract and is currently sitting as, I think, the 22nd or 23rd highest paid defensive tackle, which for him, aside from last year with those groin injuries that caused him to miss 6 games, he's won Pro Bowl. He's been a Pro Bowl selection after Pro Bowl selection year in, year out. He's been one of the top 3 or top 5 defensive linemen every year. And so I respect the fact that he's come out and said, hey, I'm not attending the voluntary OTAs because I want an extension so that I can stay here. It sounds like he would be willing to do an extension and then shuffle that contract so that it is still salary cap beneficial to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he wants to still be paid and be recognized as one of the top D linemen in the league. And that's a situation where I go, okay, this isn't the media reporting it or
It's
anything like that.
literally him
This
just
is
coming
the
out and
dude
stating
coming
it.
out and
Yep.
saying, and he's getting ahead of the media going, look, I'm not going to be there. So you're going to probably see reporters going, oh, everybody's here. We're not seeing Cam Hayward. What's going on? Is he going to be traded? He's going, no, I
Yeah.
just want my contract. I want to play out my career in Pittsburgh. If it doesn't play out that way, so be it. If they want to move on from me, fine.
Yep.
But I want a definitive answer one way or the other.
And one of the beautiful things about the world that we live in right now is that a lot more players have this avenue to speak, and that is really, really good to have, because again, you want to have more truth coming out that's available. And again, I don't want to necessarily sit back and just say, well, in my industry, this, that, and the other thing. But there's times where you just simply hear stuff and you have to go with it, because
right
that
and yeah, go like those reports on Justin Fields and the ones on Russell Wilson, like those are going to be in my mind all through training camp, all through OTAs, like I'm going to be watching any signs of that being true. I'm not going to assume it's true going forward, though.
Yep.
You know me. I'm very much a team guy.
See it to believe it.
And I'm going to support my team in the decisions they make until they move away from it, and then I will say, yeah, that was a dumb move. I don't know why we were doing that, but I had to support it during the time. Kenny Pickett.
Without a doubt. But
yeah.
I
just wanted to add that in there to sort of
that's a great nugget to add.
Yeah, show to people what I mean by I want to hear it from the player or from the coach, as opposed to a unknown source in the locker room reports that this might be the case.